So here's where things get, well, really interesting. Globally, the whole geopolitical landscape seems to be shifting, doesn't it?
It really does. There's so much instability right now.
Yeah, think about Palestine,
Mm.
Ukraine, even the sort of lingering effects of the Trump era. And in that environment, a really dangerous fault line has just cracked open again.
You're talking about India and Pakistan?
Exactly. Two nuclear-armed nations, and they seem to be right back on the precipice. This isn't just some regional issue either. The fallout could genuinely be global.
It's definitely a moment of, let's say, heightened risk. It's striking how quickly these long simmering tensions can just boil over, especially when the global situation feels so uncertain. It almost creates a kind of permission structure for escalation.
Okay, so that's what we're doing today. A deep dive into this escalating crisis between India and Pakistan. And to really get it, you have to go back, right?
Oh, absolutely. Back to the very beginning.
The bitter legacy of 1947, the partition of British India.
And right at the heart of it all, Kashmir. Disputed territory, Muslim-majority region.
Ooh, hugely strategic. Not just land, but water, trade routes, everything.
Yeah, if you connect it to the bigger picture, partition itself was incredibly traumatic. It left all these unresolved issues just festering, and Kashmir became the biggest, most persistent flashpoint almost immediately.
Its control over the Indus headwaters, its location.
Exactly. That's only amplified its importance over the years.
And look, this isn't new, is it? It feels like a recurring nightmare. We've seen these cycles before.
Many times. The first war in 47, dividing Kashmir right at the start.
Then 1965. 1971, that one led to Bangladesh's independence and, well, deepened the hatred.
Then Kargil in 99, that felt incredibly close.
Many say that was the closest call to actual nuclear war between them.
It certainly felt like it. Then the Indian Parliament attack in 2001, Pulwama in 2019.
Each one just ratcheting up the danger.
And each conflict, it has its own triggers, its own specific outcomes, but the cumulative effect, it hardens positions. It builds that cycle of mistrust.
Kargil, like you said, that was particularly scary. Direct fighting between two nuclear powers, high altitude. The risk of miscalculation was just immense.
Unprecedented, really.
So what's the catalyst this time? What sparked this latest surge?
It seems to be this horrific attack in Indian-administered Kashmir just days ago.
Right, targeting tourists. The reports are awful. 26 civilians killed, dozens injured.
Yes, and tragically, it's the highest civilian death toll in a single incident like this in India since the Mumbai attacks back in 2008.
Wow. That really raises the stakes.
It absolutely does. And it raises immediate questions, doesn't it? About who did it, why now, especially given the global context.
Has anyone claimed responsibility?
No group has publicly come forward, but that hasn't stopped the accusations. Indian officials immediately pointed the finger at Pakistan-linked groups.
And that set things in motion. Okay, so the immediate aftermath. India's response.
Forceful, unequivocal accusations of cross-border terrorism. The Prime Minister convened an urgent meeting with political leaders. They needed a plan.
And Pakistan. Predictable denial.
Swift and categorical. They called the accusations baseless propaganda. They even floated the idea of it being a false flag operation.
Meaning India staged it themselves.
That's the suggestion. To create a pretext for aggression against Pakistan, the idea being an attack seen as internal might build more domestic support for military action.
It's a depressingly familiar playbook in this rivalry, isn't it?
It is. But India's next steps were, well, particularly significant this time.
Okay, what did they do?
Canceled all visas for Pakistani citizens, shut down the only land border crossing, and then, this is the big one, they announced they were suspending the 1960 Indus Waters Treaty.
Whoa. Okay, pause there. The Indus Waters Treaty, that's huge.
It really is. It's been a cornerstone of, well, relative stability. A 60-year-old agreement on sharing river water that somehow survived multiple wars between them.
It's incredible it lasted that long. Suspending it is a massive escalation.
It's striking. Abandoning that long-standing commitment sends a powerful message. Think about Pakistan's agriculture. It's hugely dependent on the Indus.
So this is more than just symbolic. It's economic pressure, maybe even seen as an act of aggression itself.
Some analysts would definitely frame it that way. It hits Pakistan where it's incredibly vulnerable.
And India didn't stop there.
No, they downgraded diplomatic ties, recalled their ambassador from Islamabad. They even publicly released names of people they allege were the Pakistani attackers.
Okay, so Pakistan had to retaliate, right?
Predictably, yes. Mirror image measures, pretty much. Close their airspace to Indian flights.
All Indian flights.
Yes. halted all bilateral trade, even stuff transiting through other countries,
Yep.
expelled Indian diplomats, and suspended all bilateral agreements.
So basically cutting almost all formal ties.
Effectively, yes.
And that Indus Waters Treaty suspension.
Yeah.
You emphasize it, but let's just underline it again. Pakistan's dependence on the Indus.
It originates in Tibet, flows through Indian-Kashmir. For Pakistan, it's not just economic, it's existential. It's their lifeline.
So India controlling the upstream gives them massive leverage. The whole water wars concept doesn't feel so abstract here.
Not at all. Control over vital resources like water is becoming a bigger flashpoint globally, isn't it? India's geographical advantage here is a powerful strategic tool. Suspending the treaty sends a very clear and frankly destabilizing message about Pakistan's vulnerability.
What are the long-term consequences? For stability, for international law on water sharing in conflicts, it raises big questions.
Huge questions, and add to this mix reports of increased military activity along the border, troop deployments ramping up on both sides.
Any clashes reported? Casualties?
Thankfully, no confirmed casualties so far. But the buildup itself, it's causing widespread fear, real anxiety in the region, you can imagine. That visible military movement is a potent psychological weapon, too. It reinforces the idea that both sides are gearing up, even if neither actually wants a full-scale war.
And it just massively increases the risk of what? Miscalculation,
Yeah,
accidents.
exactly. Misinterpretation, accidental escalation. The danger is very real in that kind of tense environment.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Let's dig into the historical roots here. Kashmir. We mentioned 1947 partition.
Right, the catalyst. You had the Hindu ruler of a majority Muslim state, Kashmir, sort of caught in the middle. Initially didn't want to join either India or Pakistan.
But the demographics were key, weren't they?
Absolutely crucial, around 80% Muslim population. So logically, based on the partition's rationale, it seemed destined for Pakistan.
But the Maharaja eventually chose India. What prompted that?
It was spurred by an invasion of tribal militias coming from Pakistan. His decision to accede to India triggered the First Indo-Pakistani War and basically set the stage for everything that followed.
And the UN got involved early, called for a referendum.
Yes, a resolution was passed, let the Kashmiri people decide their own future. But here's the thing, that vote, that plebiscite, has never actually happened.
Why not?
Decades of disagreement between India and Pakistan on the conditions. And let's be frank, the likely outcome, a vote to join Pakistan, has always been a major hurdle for India.
So that failure to hold the vote has just festered.
For decades, it's bred resentment, a feeling of political disenfranchisement for many Kashmiris. That unresolved question of self-determination is what keeps fueling the insurgency, keeps the conflict burning.
And today, India maintains a massive military presence there. What are the numbers?
Some estimates put it around 600,000 personnel, primarily there to maintain order, suppress the unrest.
And how do the two sides view the insurgents?
Completely differently. India sees them as terrorists, often backed, trained, funded by Pakistan.
Go out back now.
Pakistan portrays them as freedom fighters resisting what they call Indian occupation. These opposing views make finding common ground incredibly difficult.
The human cost must be staggering.
Immense. Tens of thousands killed or injured is a conservative estimate. Some sources say much, much higher.
Generations growing up with this.
Exactly. Constant threat of violence, displacement, loss, insecurity. It's often lost in the geopolitical talk, but the human suffering is profound.
So the current situation on the ground is a divided Kashmir.
Divided by the line of control, heavily militarized. Indian-administered Kashmir to the south and east, Pakistan-administered Azad Kashmir to the north and west.
Is life better in Azad Kashmir?
It also has significant challenges. Reports of widespread poverty, lack of international aid for displaced Kashmiris.
Displaced people within Kashmir itself.
Yes, around 15,000 in camps, reportedly. And they don't get official UN refugee status because they're technically still on Kashmiri soil. Even though it's Pakistan-controlled, it's complicated.
We heard this anecdote, didn't we? Someone in a camp, broken teeth, allegedly from mistreatment by Indian forces.
Yeah, those personal stories, they really highlight the human dimension, the deep grievances on both sides, and that refugee status issue. It shows how even humanitarian concerns get politicized.
It's so intractable that there's even a term for it, right? Kashmirization.
Yes, it's a diplomatic term that's emerged. Basically means a state of unsolvable conflict.
What does that term itself tell us about how the world sees it?
It speaks volumes, really. It suggests a kind of international resignation, an inability to find a lasting peace. Like, it's accepted as this ongoing cycle of violence resistant to normal diplomacy.
Okay, let's widen the lens again. Geopolitics.
Yeah.
Kashmir's location is just
Yeah.
critical.
Incredibly sensitive. It's where three nuclear powers meet: India, Pakistan, and China.
That alone elevates this way beyond a regional spat.
Absolutely. A misstep here could potentially involve not just two, but three nuclear states. It's a global security concern.
And the borders themselves are incredibly contentious. Even maps are political weapons.
Fiercely contested. In India, showing a map that doesn't match their official claim is actually a criminal offense.
Wow. So can you break down the contested regions for us?
Sure, you've got Oxide Chin, run by China, claimed by India. Then an area Pakistan ceded to China, the Trans-Karakoram Tract. Then Pakistan-administered Kashmir and Indian-administered Kashmir.
But both India and Pakistan claim the whole thing.
Exactly. Both claim the entire former princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. These totally conflicting claims are a constant source of friction.
We talked about water earlier, the Indus River. Let's revisit that.
Crucial. Originates in Tibet, flows through Indian Kashmir, then becomes the absolute lifeblood for Pakistan's agriculture.
So India, being upstream, has that leverage.
Yeah.
Pakistan fears them turning off the tap, essentially.
That's the fear. Water wars. Pakistan's agricultural economy is just so vulnerable. Any disruption, deliberate or not, could be devastating for their food security, their economy.
And then there's China's big project, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC.
Right, part of their Belt and Road Initiative, and it runs through Gilgit-Baltistan.
Which is disputed Kashmiri territory. India must hate that.
They see it as a violation of their sovereignty, absolutely. And they view CPEC as cementing this China-Pakistan alliance against their interests. It just adds another layer of complexity.
And the terrain itself. High mountains, strategic passes.
Like the Siachen Glacier, one of the highest battlegrounds on Earth.
A militarized zone at that altitude.
It shows the symbolic and strategic lengths both sides will go to, even in ridiculously harsh environments. The cost, human and financial, is immense.
Which brings us squarely to the nuclear dimension. Both got the bomb in '98. How has that changed things? You'd think it might force peace.
It's paradoxical, isn't it? Nuclear deterrence, the idea of mutually assured destruction, has probably prevented another full-scale conventional war. The fear of Armageddon is a powerful check, but it doesn't eliminate the risks. Miscalculation, technical error, a small conflict somehow spiraling across the nuclear threshold, those dangers are always there.
And you have the big powers involved, too. China firmly backing Pakistan.
Their iron brother, as they call it.
While India has been getting closer to the U.S., how do these alliances play in?
They mean any major flare-up in Kashmir could potentially draw in these global players. Maybe not directly fighting, but through diplomatic pressure, military aid, strategic moves. Their actions definitely shape the crisis.
What about actual military strength? They both have nukes. Roughly 150 warheads each, you said.
Around that number, yes. But conventionally, India has a significant edge.
Out.
More active personnel, much bigger defense budget, larger army, air force, navy. It's quite an imbalance.
How might that asymmetry affect things now?
Well, it could mean Pakistan relies even more heavily on its nuclear deterrent as the great equalizer. It certainly feeds a sense of vulnerability for Pakistan, which might influence their decision-making, maybe make them more unpredictable in a crisis.
And there was that strange report recently, Turkish media saying Turkey sent arms to Pakistan.
Yes, cargo planes supposedly carrying weapons. It was officially denied later.
But if it had been true, what would that have signified?
Oh, a major escalation. Turkey clearly taking sides, potentially emboldening Pakistan, definitely straining ties with India. The fact it was denied suggests maybe they want to keep a more neutral public stance or avoid confirming anything that adds fuel to the fire.
Which leads us to Turkey's overall position. They have historically close ties with Pakistan.
Right. Very close. Fraternal ties. Pakistan supported Turkey over Cyprus. Turkey often backs Pakistan on Kashmir. There was even a recent call between their foreign ministers as this crisis unfolded.
So there's that historical connection.
No.
Turkey's relationship with India has been changing?
Critically, yes, especially economically. This is where the balancing act comes in.
How so? What are the economics?
Well, Turkey's trade with India has boomed. India became its largest trade partner in Far Asia. In 2022, it hit like $12 billion. Even now, it's around $10 billion.
Compared to Pakistan?
Much, much lower. Maybe $1 to $1.5 billion range.
Okay, so that's a huge difference. Turkey has a massive economic stake in keeping things stable with India.
Exactly. It forces a very careful, nuanced diplomatic game. Siding too strongly with Pakistan, publicly at least, could cost Turkey dearly in economic terms. It's that classic tension, historical ties versus current economic realities.
So the million-dollar question, is this heading towards another war? Experts sound worried.
They are. Some are calling this the most dangerous situation in years. We even heard Pakistan's defense minister warn publicly about a full-scale war between two nuclear states.
But the nuclear deterrent, it's held so far.
It has likely prevented large-scale conventional war, yes. But with tensions this high, communication lines breaking down, the risk of miscalculation, you can't dismiss it. Especially with moves like suspending the Indus Waters Treaty that erodes established norms.
And if the big powers get drawn in more directly?
That's the nightmare scenario. The existing alliances mean it could spiral outwards, become much wider, with consequences far beyond South Asia.
Okay, so let's try and summarize. We have this deep, complex history over Kashmir.
Right. Decades long.
A really dangerous current crisis sparked by this awful attack.
Pushing things to the edge.
Huge geopolitical stakes involving 3 nuclear powers: India, Pakistan, China.
A nuclear shadow always looming.
And then countries like Turkey trying to navigate this, balancing history and economics.
It's an incredibly precarious situation. The breakdown of agreements, the harsh rhetoric, it feels like a dangerous shift. The potential for devastation is, well, frankly, terrifying.
It really is. So on that rather sobering thought, here's something for you, our listeners, to think about. Given everything we've discussed, the history, the nukes, the alliances, what do you think is the most likely path forward here for India and Pakistan? And maybe more chillingly, what unforeseen global consequences could ripple out from this incredibly tense standoff?